What's up, fight fans? Greg Rowe Show Boxing. Well, I just watched the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight. No, I did not pay for it. I would never pay for something like that, but I'd rather watch a fight than not watch a fight. So I watched it, unfortunately. If you didn't watch it, I'm going to give you kind of a breakdown of the fight. You know, what I saw in the fight, what I thought about the fight before it actually happened. I picked Jake Paul to win this fight simply because I felt like he would be stronger. I felt like he threw, crisper, more, accurate, kind of compact punches with snap on him than Diaz does. Diaz, you see, just kind of slaps his punches and kind of tries to, basically overwhelm you with activity in his cardio. I said that's kind of what he was going to try and do, and then I picked Jake to win the fight. I did expect Jake to win the fight via stoppage on cuts because Diaz has had a history of, cutting very easily. So I thought, he'd probably get cut in the mid rounds and maybe the fight would get stopped. But I always had Jake Paul winning this fight simply, for those reasons. Jake Paul, is getting better as a fighter. Is he somebody that I take serious? No. Like Sean Porter said tonight on the broadcast, Nate and Jake can draw out all these people, but Jake has still got to earn the respect of the boxing community, and he hasn't done that and isn't going to do that with this kind of fight. And it was spot on. It's spot on for what most boxing people say and think about Jake Paul. I don't take Jake Paul serious as a fighter. I don't pay to watch him fight. I've never paid to watch him fight. This is only the second fight really that I've watched. I've seen clips and highlights of all the other fights and all that kind of stuff. But, the Tommy Fury fight I watched because, Fury comes from a fighting family. So to me, that was like, okay, it was a little bit more legit. I didn't watch the Anderson Silva fight. I didn't watch, any of the Ben Askrens or the Tyrone Woodley fights. I wasn't interested in any of that. And I sure as hell didn't watch the one against, the ex-basketball player, whatever the hell his name was. But, I was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of Nate Diaz. And I'll watch this fight because of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a real fighter, right? And he's somebody who a person like me appreciates because he's a real fighter. He'll fight anybody. He doesn't care. He'll fight somebody in their backyard. He choked out that dude in front of a bar, a couple months back, and he's just willing to do whatever. He just wants to fight. He's one of those cats that he doesn't care if if he wins, great. If he doesn't, he doesn't take it, personal, and he's not like all butthurt about it and whatnot because he just wants to fight. He's a pure fighter at heart, and that's what I like about him, and that's really the only reason I really tuned in. Like I said, I don't watch Jake Paul fight, and I sure as hell won't pay to watch him fight. I know Michael Chandler and some other MMA guys were like, he's going to beat the brakes off that YouTube star and all this stuff. And it comes down to simple fundamentals. As shit a fighter as Jake Paul is, he has better boxing fundamentals than Nate Diaz does. Nate Diaz is very, awkward and kind of looks to just kind of wear guys down, kind of lull them to sleep, and then kind of explode on them and kind of overwhelm them with activity. And that kind of stuff just doesn't work in boxing. You can't slap your punches in boxing. The guy who throws the straighter shots, the guy who throws the harder shots, the guy who throws the shots with better technique and with bad intentions is going to win the fight. And for the most part tonight, that fighter was Jake Paul, and that's why he won the fight. And that's why I said he would always win the fight. So yeah, other than that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not interested in seeing, Stevenson and Avila, two MMA guys, box. I heard that fight was total dog shit. And it's because MMA guys can't box. They always say, like, okay, well, then MMA guy would win in a street fight. And maybe that's true if you can get a hold of him and choke him out. But you know what? A boxer who has great technique, understands how to punch, understands range, distance, angles, is a good counter puncher, has hand speed and punching power. If they land a shot first, it don't matter how good of a grappler or whatever you are because you're going fucking night-night, right? So, it's two different sports, and there's a reason that Jake Paul, coming off of a loss, picked Nate Diaz. He's a big name. You could hear it tonight. More people were cheering for him than were cheering for Jake Paul. I bet 80 to 85% of the people in the arena were for Nate Diaz, if not 90%. So there's a reason he chose him, and he knew from watching the tape that he's got great cardio, he's tough, he's durable, but he doesn't punch hard. He doesn't knock you out with one punch, and so there's no threat of getting caught with something or getting caught with a combination or something you don't see, and Jake going down or going out. It was the same reason they tried to pick Hasim Rahman Jr. It's the same reason, and the thing about it is it's all these people who love social media and are in love with social media and in love with Jake Paul and his brother and Prime energy drinks and all this kind of shit that are buying the fights. It's all the the girls that want to be influencers and all that kind of stuff that are buying the fights. It's all the people who want to be part of the cool group, the in group, the whatever that is watching these fights, that's going to these fights. It's not real boxing fans. It's not real fight fans that are going to these fights. I can promise you that. I've never been to a Jake Paul fight. I wouldn't go to a Jake Paul fight if somebody gave me a ticket, gave me ringside credentials, paid for my flight, paid for my hotel, paid for my food. I still would not go see Jake Paul fight live. That's what I think about him as a fighter. So I don't know what it's like at a Jake Paul fight live, but I can imagine, that's the type of people you see at these fights. You're not going to see, real legitimate fight fans and stuff show up to watch Jake Paul fight. So, I had it 6-4. Jake Paul did score a knockdown, I believe, in the 5th round, so I had it 96-93. Diaz was winning the fight when he was active, when he was pressing the action, when he was staying on Jake Paul, letting his hands go, not letting him breathe. He was having success. Yes, he wasn't really hurting him, but he was having success in those moments. And the problem was he had too few of those moments. He would fight like the last half of every round, or he'd take a round off here or there, and he would just let Jake kind of steal rounds from him. The first 3 rounds, Jake clearly won. He won the round, with the knockdown in the 5th round, obviously. But other than those 4 rounds, the next 6 rounds, it were probably 4-2 Diaz. But Diaz was just not consistent enough. He didn't press the action enough. He didn't stay on him. He'd get a moment where he'd get him and start hitting him with combinations, and Jake's head would snap back and he'd look to hold on and all this stuff. And then Jake would hold him, and then the referee would break them up, and then Diaz would just stand there and stare at him instead of jumping back on him, and doing what he just did, having success. And so to me, that was, I didn't understand that. But again, Diaz is not a boxer. He's an MMA fighter. He's a real fighter, right? So if this was a street fight, Diaz beats him. They're talking about having a fight in the PRL, in a cage. If that happens, Diaz will absolutely destroy him. So see, that's the difference. Jake Paul beat Diaz tonight. He didn't destroy him. He beat him. If they fight in a cage, Diaz is going to destroy him. He's going to make him look awful, terrible. So that's the difference in kind of what Nate was talking about leading up to. He's like, even if he beats me or whatever, it doesn't matter, because he doesn't really beat me, right? He would never really beat me in a real fight. So, take that how you will, but I mean, it was pretty boring. It was more like a sideshow or like a circus than it was an actual fight. Like last week we had Fulton versus Inoue, and we had Crawford versus Spence, like real legitimate fights for real legitimate titles, and like big great fights. And then we go to this, which is more of like a sideshow. And people say, well, Jake's popular and people should show up to watch him fight. That's true. I mean, it's never been hard to draw people to the circus. Like that's never been hard throughout history, right? So in this world we live in, where everybody wants to be an influencer and a star, and this and that on YouTube and the internet and fucking Twitter and all this kind of stuff, like you're gonna have a giant group of people who are into that, believe in that, live their life by that, that are going to go see people like Jake Paul fight or go watch Logan Paul wrestle in the WWE. Like, those people are always going to be there. That doesn't mean that it's right. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's entertaining. That doesn't mean it's highly skilled or anything like that. It's just it's never been hard to draw people to the circus. So you know, that's the breakdown, I guess, on that. Fight went exactly like I thought it was going to go. I was really kind of shocked that Diaz didn't get stopped on cuts. I didn't think Paul was going to knock him out. I didn't really. I mean, I thought there was a chance, obviously, that it went to the cards, but I really had, you know, Jake winning in the middle rounds on cuts, just because Diaz has had a history of, you know, bleeding all over the place, you know, around the eyes and whatnot. So that's how I thought the fight was going to go. It didn't go exactly that way, but the guy I thought would win, and he won for the exact reasons that I said he would. So that's it. That's a breakdown. If you watch the fight, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you didn't, no need to watch the fight. You could just watch this video, and everything you need to know is right here without having to sit through an hour, you know, of suffering. So that's it for me. Obviously, the more fights that come down the road here, you know, I'll give my breakdowns, and then, you know, my epilogues, the aftermath of kind of what happened in the fight compared to, you know, how I thought it was going to go. So if you're into that kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment in the section below what you thought about this fight. Did you watch it? Did you not? Why did you not watch it? What do you think about Jake Paul as a fighter? What do you think about, you know, the possibilities of Diaz and Paul, you know, kind of squaring off in a cage in the next meeting? Does Jake Paul go rematch Tommy Fury? Give the video a thumbs up, share it if you want to, and until the next one, I'm out of here.